Welcome to our November edition of our Roundtable for Customer-Led Growth. My name is Jeff Ernst, and I am the founder and CEO of Slap5, and also the founder of the CustomerX community, which many of you I know have participated in. For those of you that don't know me, just a quick background. You know, I've dedicated the last 15 years or so of my life to really trying to elevate the profession of what we call CustomerX, which is customer marketing, customer advocacy, customer experience, customer engagement type roles. And we've been working and created the CustomerX community for customer-led growth to do just that, to help elevate our impact, our influence, and do it by connecting our work to the strategic growth initiatives that our C-level executives care about in our companies. And in doing that, to hopefully make the roles that we serve today, our CustomerX roles, a path to the C-suite themselves. And so knowing that a lot of you from the survey work that we've done and the initial survey findings that we presented at the CustomerX conference in Boston last month, we know that a lot of you aspire to, or almost 70% of you, I think, aspire to be in a C-suite position. And so Bill and I put our heads together and said, you know what, we need to give people some real guidance and on how to do that, how to put themselves on that career path. So we went out and found somebody who's actually done that. And won't give it away, but now let me just introduce my partner in crime here, Bill Lee. Bill's the leading thought leader in customer marketing and advocacy. Bill and I have been working together for the past 4 or 5 years with the same mission here of trying to elevate this community. And well, let me just turn over to Bill. Let you introduce yourself and a little bit of the work that we've been doing recently.
All righty. Thank you, Jeff. Hello, everybody, and welcome, Christina. We're very pumped. For those of you who don't know me, and I've been making the mistake that everybody knows who I am, but of course, it's not always true, especially given the last couple of years. So here's just a very quick overview of who the heck is this guy. So I came into the space a little bit before Jeff, about 20 years ago. I had a marketing strategy and communications firm and found myself doing more and more work with these things called customer reference programs. With firms like Hewlett-Packard, Alcatel, Lucid, CA Technologies, and so forth. And my new clients, what they really liked about me was the fact that I have a substantive business background. So I looked and thought a lot like their customers. So I've been a production controller, for example, for a manufacturer, a VP of operations for a commercial developer. I've actually worked as an official in the Pentagon, the biggest, I guess, silo of them all. And my clients found that I understood their customers better than they did, often better than their internal people understood their customers. So I got a lot of work. I got very interested in this area, and I learned 2 big things. Number one is that these customers they were working with, it's a much bigger world than they were thinking. It's not just about referencing. You've got advocacy, you've got evangelism. Beyond that, you've got advisory boards, you've got communities, and so forth. And 2 things were clear to me. One was that these customers are incredibly valued to your business. And the second thing was most firms aren't coming close to realizing that potential. So the next few years, I did a few things. Number one, I created categories expanding this.
How's it going?
Advocacy. Please mute. Hello, folks. Hello, folks.
I don't think so. Ours is
Hello. Can I ask you to mute?
I just muted them.
Great, thank you. Oh, good. I'm glad we have the button. So I created kind of subcategories: customer advocacy, customer engagement. I trademarked the metric return on relationships, customer relationships in particular, and combined these form the foundation for what today we're calling customer marketing and customer-led growth. I formed a global community around this with firms like Apple, Microsoft, Adobe, Box, AWS, and so forth. A pretty good cross-section of B2B tech firms. I published over 20 articles with Harvard Business Review, including my book, The Hidden Wealth of Customers. I built the longest running 16 years, the most respected, longest running conference in this space in the world, the Summit on Customer Engagement. That was then. This is 2020, the 2020s now. What have we been doing since then? Starting in 2020, Jeff and I kind of discovered we had this very like thinking with each other. So we are spearheading. We got bold, and we decided we're going to spearhead a revolution in the customer relationship, designed to revolutionize the way that we grow our businesses. Traditional marketing, sales, and support, they're not working so great anymore. They don't scale. People are realizing this. And in any case, today's customers don't want to consume in such ways, either pre-sale or post-sale. Customers do want to connect with their peers, other customers, like-minded customers like them when facing difficult decisions throughout their journey. We call this customer-led growth, and our aim is twofold: to give firm leadership the strategies and research and peer affiliations they need to transform to such customer-led growth. And secondly, to give you folks and our audience, customer implementation teams, the tools and guidance they need to deliver on that vision that will, among other things, take you to the heights in your careers, kind of like our guest, our special guest, has done. So that's a little bit about me. On with the show. Any other prelims, Jeff, or should I just jump in?
Well, you would want to just talk a little bit about the roundtable and the participants and some of the key findings we learned.
Can we share? Is that working? Oh, it's up. Great.
Yep.
Yes. Let's talk about these folks. This is in the summer of 2020. We floated the idea, let's do a roundtable for a customer revolution. And we filled up, we wanted a fairly small but very elite group. And as you can see, we got one. They signed up. We filled this up within a couple of weeks, less than a couple of weeks. People like Nick Maida, CEO of Gainsight, Carol Myers. She's a board advisor, former CMO of Rapid7. I believe Christina probably knows her pretty well. She's on their board.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, I'm sure. Jake Sorofman, he's former chief of research at Gartner. CMO now at Visier. He's also been CMO of Pendo and other great firms. And then it goes on from there. Anthony, Canada, he was Nick's CMO at Gainsight. He's doing some fascinating things now with customer communities, so forth and so on. I won't try to name everybody. Next build. Then in addition to this, we've got like 14 transcripts of in-depth conversations and research, supplemented by research from the original founders here. And then we've got a webinar series, of which this is one. We've had several of the folks on the original roundtable, including Nick, Carol, Jake, and we also include high-powered thought leaders like Fred Reichheld, Mr. Net Promoter Score, Brent Adamson, co-author of the Challenge Customer and Challenge Sale. Richard Owen, also NPS fame, and so forth. And then finally, earlier this year, we did our first CEO beta roundtable. There we go. And look who we got there. We got Christina, who was awesome, a couple of other very accomplished CEOs, all in B2B, all SaaS firms. And that was a big success, and we are looking for ways to build on that. And our twofold thing here, as I said, CEOs, your C-suite, and we're going to talk about this here in just a second, they need tools. We can't just expect them to know what the value and what are the possibilities for your customers to grow the business. And then secondly, training you folks. We call those of you who are who want to get to the C-suite cathedral builders. We're going to be providing tools and so forth for you as well. That's it. I want to talk to Christina. May I?
Yes.
All right.
Well, why don't you introduce Christina, Bill?
Well, that's what I'm going to start with. So, Christina, where do you start? She was introduced to me by Chris Adlard, Mr. Customer Catalyst, both author and founder of that movement, similar movement. Chris is a great guy, good friend of mine, very accomplished. She participated, as I said, in our first beta roundtable. She was awesome. She was incredible. Actually, all of them were. I don't really have a faith. It's, a favorite. But if I did, So here's her experience. I mean, this is coming, she's your peeps. She comes from your world. So I'm doing this in reverse order. She was at Salesforce for almost 15 years. And she has several positions that are basically, and Christina, you can correct me on this when we talk, but basically these are about the customer engagement, customer relationships, customers, working with customers to improve the business, to grow the business, and so forth. And she topped her career off there as an SVP of Revenue Lifecycle Management, Renewals and Sales. Then she goes to Slack after that, where she topped out there. She was there for 4 years, about 4 years. She topped out as a Chief Customer Officer and Global Head of both. Well, Global Head of Customer Success, which included Customer Marketing as well. Now she's been at LogicMonitor for about 2 years, first as president, and now as CEO, Chief Executive Officer, coming from your world, folks. So let's talk, shall we, with Christina. Please send in questions. We've got our chat fired up. And Christina, what I'd like to start with is a post that Leslie Barrett, I hope she's on, and several, actually, she got something like 24 comments on this from a lot of people in customer marketing and related about CEOs, leadership are laying off customer marketing, and her particular pet peeve, I guess, in this post, quite appropriately, was, and yet at the same time, they're ramping up the funding for sales. And she gave some examples of some of the metrics that she's used to show its value. The ROI of her program is quite strong, influences and so forth. So what I would like to do, Christina, is to have you give your thoughts on this idea of laying off customer marketers, why that might be happening, and what can they do about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super disappointing to me that that's happening. And, I think often it's because it's just not as well understood. And sometimes it can get perceived as like fluffy, right? And that is the exact opposite of the truth. And I think, I feel fortunate because I came up from that, and the power of having these customer voices at the table is unbelievable. And so I think, we know that customers, especially as you go into new industries, new geographies, even new products, your customers, they're people, and they're putting their careers on the line to buy your product or service or software. And they don't want to do that if they don't feel comfortable that others are doing it. They feel very peer pressured. And so by having these stories and highlighting these customers who are doing exactly what they're trying to do gives them that confidence to make the leap. And it's critical. I mean, without that, I think you do not get those purchases as fast as you would like. And so one of the conversations we were having just this week or last week was I had my company board meeting. And we're, in this market, it's a crazy time. So we're constantly looking at our expenses and how can we, where are areas we can be more efficient? How do we get focus? And we look at the hard ROI, which is not just, how many customer stories are we getting and how is that influencing deals, but also saying, hey, if we can stand up a customer community, can we deflect support costs from that? And are there these other efficiencies? And so we're putting a pitch on that, which says customer community, which includes so many different things, like putting your champions in place, the customer marketing, all of that. It's revenue generating, but it's also cost savings and putting kind of some of those tangible hard ROIs. And we believe it will have a big impact on support and education and helping customers utilize and ramp faster on our products, as well as help us sell into additional verticals and industries and regions as well.
And Christina, could you give us an example of that? Because you mentioned, selling into a new market or a new industry, a new geography. Is there an example of how you like to tap into customers and mobilize customers when you're doing something like that? Because that's such a common scenario that all of our attendees are in within their companies. And we all, I think, have recognized that we're not really doing enough to take advantage of the power that our customers have when we're doing a strategic growth initiative. And that's exactly what we mean by customer-led growth, by the way, is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, so I'll give an example. Here at LogicMonitor, we do observability software, and I won't bore everyone with all the kind of technical details, but basically we observe and monitor companies' technical stack. And we look for anomalies and then solve them or get them directed to the right person who can solve them so that the systems stay up and running. And traditionally, we have done that from the infrastructure layer. But we recently added a new product called APM, Application Performance Monitoring. And that's an area that we weren't known for. And so the industry didn't know us for that. And so the first thing we said is, listen, we have to get this product in the hands of our customers. I'm not gonna release product until we're getting feedback from our customers. And we need to choose who are those lighthouse customers, who are the customers where they have a brand or they're gonna do something that has influence over another set of customers. And so for us, we chose companies in the verticals that we're going after. So for us, financial services and healthcare are two really important ones. So we found some customers that were willing to raise their hands, and we said, listen, we want you to be a part of this development effort. And that's very appealing to customers. Like customers love to be involved in the direction of your product because they get to be a part of that innovation. And so we asked them to do that. And then we also said, all right, and we'd love, once we get through this, if you're successful, will you be able to tell that story for us? And so that is very much a part of our launch strategy for a product, is that we've got to kind of do this beta or this iterative thing with the subset of customers, and then for them to tell their story. And that, ultimately gets us into that market. And we know that, there'll be these tipping point customers that help us get their, other companies that are similar to them, whether it be in a similar industry, a similar phase of growth, similar problem set that they're trying to deal with.
So I'm just curious, Christina, was there ever talk at the start of this initiative? My guess is going to be there probably wasn't, but there's a lot of companies that would have this conversation. They would start by thinking, all right, we got to get known. We need a big marketing campaign. We need, we need to hire more salespeople. Now, this is a different world we're living in all of a sudden, maybe 6 months ago, that was still going on. It's probably not going on as much. But was there any kind of talk like that? Or was there just, are you guys involved enough that you realize this is the way you grow businesses in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, we had a new product marketing person come in, and I think, that is the kind of normal playbook, right? Which is, let's just get sales capacity in and let's train these salespeople. But I believe obviously strongly that everything has to be about the customer, and you have to go on these journeys with the customer. And I think if you look at Salesforce and Slack, both of the companies are outstanding at doing that. Salesforce was at the forefront of creating kind of trailblazers and taking these people who had really kind of crappy jobs, if you will, and elevating them and helping them say, hey, it's okay to bet your career on Salesforce. We got you. We're going to highlight you, and creating this whole ecosystem around that, which has been incredible. And then at Slack had this incredible virality that also was just, that you could witness. And so I've been able to witness that firsthand, that without that, you can't be successful. And one of the reasons I chose coming to LogicMonitor is I looked at, is there this customer love? Do customers feel deeply passionate about the product? And that clay was there for me, but it wasn't being highlighted, and it wasn't being utilized in a way that it could be. And so that was kind of a big initiative I had.
Right. But a fascinating challenge as well. Jeff, did you want to? I've got a couple more here.
Yeah. Well, just maybe digging a little deeper on that one. So I think what Bill was referring to when he was just asked that question is sort of about a lot of conversations we hear in talking to CEOs, is that they're finding that sometimes those traditional sales and marketing tactics are just losing their effectiveness. And given all the noise that's out there in the market, and given how buyers are ever more skeptical and wanting more proof of what it's like to be a customer before they're willing to take that plunge, to have that confidence that you mentioned earlier. So have you been having any discussions like that with your executive team, or just saying, should we be shifting some of our investment from some of these traditional things that might be losing their effectiveness to things that we know are going to knock it out of the park, especially given where we are with this economic climate?
Yeah, I mean, that's the exact discussion we're having. I mean, so we, in terms of on the marketing side, we're saying we've got to take stuff out of just our digital spend, and we've been putting it into events, which bring together, our customers, and we highlight them. So we've been doing that. We also have ramped up our customer marketing to where they're able to, get those stories documented and, out there in a way. And we've shifted to kind of even webinars, right, where we're doing things like this. And so that's been really important on the marketing side. And we actually then put the community on the customer success side, because we're building up from, even looking at it from the smallest, like, how do I solve a problem, and bringing the community together, to all the way through, here's a big challenge we're trying to solve at our company, and here's how we're going to kind of help tell that story. And so they work hand in hand with the customer marketing team. And we've shifted our support dollars into that mechanism. So it's a huge topic for us. And I just continue to believe that our customers have to be at the forefront, and they have to be in this journey with us, and you have to build trust. And there's no better way to build trust than letting your customers talk to each other and letting your customers tell your story, because it's not you. Like, nobody trusts when you're saying, here's what we need to, here's how great we are. That just loses, it doesn't resonate as well. And that's what happens when you have just a salesperson, or you're sending people just on digital searches and things like that. You've got to have your customers telling the story. You've got to let them come together and talk about things that you're having, like we do that at LogicMonitor, and then we involve them in the journey that we're all going on to be better and to solve these problems, and they feel very much invested in a part of it.
Awesome. I'm seeing crickets in the on the chat function here.
Yeah,
Feel
well,
free to weigh in.
we'll just,
I think
yeah, just make sure we tell people, we will have plenty of time at the end for some Q&A, but feel free to put your questions in there now. And
Right.
if they're timely, we will pose them right now, but keep going, Bill, sorry.
So so just to be clear, this was your product team that you were working with on this new approach. Was it new? Just to clarify, was it new to them? And did you have much pushback from that? Because I certainly know lots of stories where folks like yourself do get pushback.
It wasn't new, completely new, but it was elevated and programmatized in a more official way. And I wouldn't say I got like pushback, but sometimes it's viewed as slowing the process down, right? Like,
Right.
well, no, we're ready just to release and we've got this great product. Like it's ready for prime time. Like, let's just launch it. Instead of saying, well, no, we need to get our customers to feel, we need one, their input, so that we build a better product. And two, we need them to feel this investment in what we're doing, and then that they can help tell that story, because without that, we're not going to be successful in this launch. And so I think there was a little bit of that.
So was that message persuasive to them, or that my guess is that the first time maybe you broached that, it's like, it's a little too much to observe. And we already have our playbook, that we're used to using. But my feeling is you're pretty persuasive. You're in a progressive firm. Probably after 2 or 3 times, they finally start getting on board with this. Is that something like what happened?
Yeah, well, this is the beauty of being a CEO now. I used to have to much
that
more
too.
persuasive, and now I can be persuasive and put my fist on the ground. I'm half joking, but that was,
Right.
I think it is hard. It is hard for everybody here in the audience when you're trying to be persuasive and influence and you don't have the direct control of it. And I think, I always phrase stuff, and even I have to do this a little bit with the board. While internally I can do it, but just as we talk about, the bigger initiatives and where we're moving resources around, I talk about things in terms of experiments. And I think that people can get on board with that, where you're like, let me just try this with this subset of customers, or with this smaller product, or for this period of time. And you get them to buy into like smaller bites of the pie, instead of trying to wholesale change everything, and put some clear success criteria, and also get them to buy into what is success. Because often when you're doing these experiments or you're doing these things with your customers, the success isn't right away, at least. Oh, there's going to be X more revenue. And so you need to get them to buy in to say, these are the leading indicators that if this happens, it means it's being successful, and that will ultimately lead towards more revenue.
Right. You talked about that in our webinar, and I thought it was pretty brilliant. I mean, you can, I think that's, I thought that was really, really interesting.
And
so,
Bill, I was going to say, before we jump into sort of the career path discussions, there's actually a good question here that got seconded and then reinforced and asked a different way. And so Christina, you obviously see the light because of your career background, your upbringing, so to speak. But what would you say if you are, networking with other CEOs or C-level executives who just don't really understand the impact that customers can have? I mean, what would that conversation sound like if you are, what language are you using if you're trying to communicate to them, hey, this really works? I think you're missing the boat here.
Specifically, what is the value that customer marketing and the relationship they develop with customers? What can they bring? How would you, the real question is, how would you spread the light over to other leaders to let them know the value of your customer marketing teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you constantly have to talk in quantitative and qualitative terms, right? And one of the big things with customer marketing is this emotional, capturing the emotional attachment that customers have with your company, your product, your services, your people. And that's hard. And that sometimes gets viewed as fluffy, but it is extremely important and actually drives so much of a company's success. So I think you lead with some of the hard metrics around here's how we can influence revenue, here's how we're saving costs, here's how we're driving these things. And then we also are creating this qualitative emotional attachment that our customers have, and then even maybe put a way that you could measure that. And that can be in, engagement layers. So how much are customers engaging with you? And that can be, are they attending your events? Are they coming to your webinars? Are they calling your support even? Like that's often sometimes a positive sign as well. It means they're using your product. And what's that engagement look like? And even start to correlate engagement to retention and revenue. And that's, I think an interesting way to kind of tie some of that qualitative with some quantitative aspects.
That reminds me of your old boss, Mark Benioff. You probably know this story, but very early on, when Salesforce, when he was still coding himself, I think it was like, way early days, and he was like back then he was talking, I think, on the phone to customers that, would you rather have this or that tab, or stuff like that. And he found that in his early conferences, where when he's probably getting 50 or 60 people in some hotel ballroom somewhere, he thought that his sales, charisma, which he had a ton of, he thought that would sell a lot. But what he found at these conferences was the thing that sold is when customers who were at the conference, along with prospects, when they could talk to each other, like the crosstalk after the Q&A. And he found that it finally occurred to him, let's just do away with having salespeople and sales pitches. Let's just put customers and prospects together at these events. What he found was that 80% of prospects who came and had that ability to have free conversations, transparent conversations, 80% eventually wound up becoming customers themselves. So there's to your point, they've developed these relationships. There is now a person or persons at this company that there's that emotional attachment. And oh, by the way, it does drive hard metrics.
Yeah. I was at Salesforce in the early days in 2002 when Mark had that epiphany. And when we would put these customers together, they always said, they would look around the room, they're like, what's the catch? I can't believe you're doing this, because that was unheard of in software. Like, you did not do it. And if you think about like the Oracles of the world, they never wanted to put their customers together because they were scared that they would just gang up and start bitching about everything that wasn't working. And so the trust that was built, I think, was the most important foundational aspect of that, was that our customers came to trust us. And then once you do that, they're willing to advocate for you because they feel in the boat with you. They know that you're trying to be better and that you're not trying to pull fast ones over them. And so they will do anything for you.
Yeah, it's a great story. So let's see, did we have anything else like interesting here? They're all interesting, actually. One, maybe for right now, for this group here, for those who are worried about their jobs or may have lost their jobs or feel that they're at risk of losing their jobs, is there something specific? I know that it's a pretty general question, but is there something specific you can suggest to them. I mean, my suggestion would be start with getting clarity on what's your board and what's your CEO, what objectives are they prioritizing right now? Start with those and then start getting creative about, or talk to this community, or talk to a mentor, or talk to your peer group and start brainstorming ways in which your customers can help move that objective. Would that be like a good place to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think that often people just don't understand. And so what, CEOs and the board, they understand the basics. Sales reps, lead gen, and support, right? Those are the three things they understand. They also don't really even understand customer success, in that mix. Like, it's just old school support. And so that's how they think about it. And so you need to your point, like, understand what are the business imperatives that the company's trying to solve, and then, help them understand what it is you do, and then bring those qualitative and quantitative results and things that you believe you can influence to that. And it all depends. Some companies, many right now, are in cost-cutting mode. And so actually talking about community as a support savings might resonate with your company more than talking about it as building trust. Or your company may be earlier in the stages and they're launching new products. And so you talk about how you can make that launch be more successful. Maybe your company's still in growth mode, so you link on to the growth metrics. So I think that, to your point, understanding that, being able to translate how you can help, and then just help bring awareness. I mean, even if your CEO understands or has a high level grasp of what you're doing, still just keep the drumbeat of getting in their room and, in their office and their Zoom, and telling them what you're doing, asking them, can they be involved in customers? Like, there's no better way for them to understand it is if you say, hey, we're doing a customer marketing video. Can you interview the customer? Can you get on a webinar with this customer? Can you do that? They're going to really start to see that passion. And then your customer is most likely going to say, like, so-and-so has been so amazing, and we love our story, and kind of help tell that for you as well.
Yeah.
I think we should really jump into some career advice, some real specific career advice for customer marketers. I know, since we have about 15 minutes left, and I think Christine on the chat actually just asked a great question, which is, what are the key skills that helped you when you were moving from CCO and VP roles to become a CEO? Or even if you want to expand that question a little bit, even go to somebody who's a manager or director level, what skill sets should they be honing right now? And how might they change as they move up the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hear an adage of, like, what got you here doesn't always get you to the next step. But there's a couple things for me. I mean, one, my entire career is I've set a set of values, and I've stuck to those values, and that's been really guiding me. And it started in college or university for me, when I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I took a lot of career tests and was really analyzing what I should do. And it came back that I really loved the intersection of human and business with technology. And so I ended up studying industrial engineering, and the way it was at my school was, it was just that. I was kind of applying these more business and human principles to engineering. And so I've used that to guide me. And so that's how I got to Salesforce. That's how I got to Slack. That's how I got into customer success, is that I love that intersection. And so I've kept that value alive in my career, but how I elevate has evolved. The other thing for me is, I think that when you are in these customer facing roles, customer marketing, customer success, you if you're always thinking about the customer, it's actually at the center of everything a company does. So I felt incredibly well prepared to go take the CEO job. And I was pretty adamant for probably even the last 5 years, like that's the direction I should go in, is because when you're dealing with the customer, you are intimately involved with the product direction because you're listening to what are the customer problems, and you're able to work closely with the product teams and say, here's really the types of things we should be thinking about. When stuff goes wrong with your system, I was working tightly with the engineering team on reliability and uptime. When marketing, when you're trying to have the customers tell their stories and what are things that influence them, you're really focused on the marketing aspect of it. You're hand in hand with sales, again, helping tell the customer stories, understanding what problems customers are facing and how our technology can help support them, giving customers confidence, bringing them together. And so I said, there's nobody that's better suited to be a CEO than me, because I've been at the center of every single function that exists in a company. And that's because I am closest to the customer. And as I became CEO, I said, that value of mine is never going to change. That is always how I'm going to continue to lead. Just now I'm lucky that I can lead a little bit more just from a position of influence, but now I can actually, exact change a little bit faster.
Well, speaking of trying to do it as influence, though, before you now became CEO and had the official power, what are some ways that people can be exerting that influence? Because that is, we like to say that customer marketing, customer advocacy, it takes a village, right? But it's also one of the toughest jobs because you have no authority, but you're at the intersection of sales, marketing, engineering, product direction, and customer success. And you need their cooperation, all of them, if you want to do your job right, but you don't control any of them. So, what are some of your superpowers?
I always talked about the customer. I never said, I think we should do this. We have to do this. I just said, oh, let me tell you a story. Here's how I can remember this specific example actually at Slack, like in talking to our CEO, like, here's how, let me tell you how Amazon is experiencing it. Let me tell you how they're using our product. Let me tell you what they're doing. And so it was never like, oh my gosh, Christina's in here banging down. It's just, she's telling me the story of them. And I'd say, hey, could you, would you mind talking to them? And so it was never about me. It was never me being the messenger. It was me just highlighting that story, getting our exec team in front of customers. I use this example all the time too, like creating a red account program. That sounds very tactical, kind of sounds negative, but it actually is so important because we would put it on, Stuart was CEO at Slack. We'd put it on his exec staff meetings, and every executive, we'd have an ownership from every executive team member. So we would have, the CFO that would own this customer risk, that we had and had to go get involved. And it forced the entire company to become more customer centric and bring that accountability. Again, it wasn't me, Christina, saying, hey, finance, you need to improve your contracting process. It was, oh, hey, we have a customer that we're at risk at losing. And it's because they're having a friction-filled experience. So, Mr. CFO, I'm going to put you as the sponsor to help get this over the line. And we're going to report back on the status to the entire exec team every other week. And that, put that accountability and help them, be in the shoes of our customers.
That's such a powerful point. You do, all of you have that power. Probably like nobody else in your firm.
So there are a couple questions here. I'll just go back a little bit to Asha was asking a specific question, I guess, for earlier stage companies. How would you approach investing in post-sale customer success to start, or to scale at start before you're going all in with CSMs? Is that a role that you see community playing even in an earlier stage company?
Oh yeah, it's never too early to build that DNA. I think that's where it is in the early stage. It's about being building the DNA. Like customer success is not about putting the people in place. It's about creating the culture of the company. And so if you can really, say, hey, we want our customers to talk to each other. We want to bring accountability across the entire company and across the entire executive team towards customers. So are there processes that I can put in place that enable that? All of that are things that you should be doing right away out of the gate, regardless of how big or small you are.
And so it's easy to start building that culture. I shouldn't say easy, but you have an advantage to start building that culture when you are the CEO, even though you can't dictate it, right? You can strongly influence it. But how about, our manager, director level practitioners here? Because that's another thing that we always hear people say is, oh my God, you're so lucky that your CEO gets it, or that you're so lucky that you work in a company that values the power of customers. And so what can customer marketing professionals do to try to influence that culture and that sense of customer first or customer led?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, process is not the antithesis of innovation. And so it's all about, again, ways that you can influence the culture. So I think about when I went to Slack, and it was a very engineering centric culture. They didn't, understand. I wouldn't say it wasn't a customer facing culture. It was a user facing, like they were really into the user, but didn't understand the customer. And so the first thing I asked was, hey, I've got this really great customer. Do you think they could come to our company all hands call? And that took me honestly like a couple months to get that through, because we were like, what? No, like we have our all hands. I'm like, just once. Can we just, be really, really great. And so then they agreed to have this customer on the all hands call. And that was a huge deal, because you think about it, you have these hundreds of engineers who actually have no idea, again, from the customer perspective, so you start to build that culture there. And then, I talk about the Red Account program. Hey, can we just spend 5 minutes on the customers that might be at risk? Would that be okay? And so you just start small, and you put these things in place that help, again, everybody hear those stories. And another thing, I'm still such a huge fan of Slack. And one of the best things that we did at Slack, and then we encouraged our customers to do, is have channels for every customer. So we had account channels. And so we'd be like, account dash American Express, account dash Amazon, and everybody in the company could go see what was happening with those customers. And we would encourage, the engineers, the finance people to go look at that. We had customer stories channels, and we asked our CX team every time there was like a big implementation or something to write it up. And then we'd ask the company, we said, hey, everybody needs to join this channel. And people could see, again, how our customers were using it. So I think there's a lot of kind of small things you can do that it's really hard for your company to say no to. And that slowly starts to build that DNA.
And you raised such a good point about what I heard you say was like infusing this customer voice into the company, right? It's because that's something that I've been telling customer marketers they need to play a bigger role in, because oftentimes they say, oh no, that's the customer research team or the customer intelligence team or something like that. But they're already spending all this effort trying to capture customer voice to use in their pre and post sales activities, right? But I think we sometimes underappreciate the value and the credibility that we can build by helping infuse the customer voice and insights into our own organization to help them make better decisions, to help them keep their finger on the pulse of the customer better. Would you say that?
I think it's actually the most important thing of your job to do, because otherwise you're never going to scale, right? Like you can't scale. I mean, we used to say this in customer success, like it can't just be the customer success manager's job that they're driving everything for the customer. It's about creating scalable processes that allow the company's DNA to understand how our customers are using our product, and then tell that, that voice. And so, like I said, It's putting those processes, getting slots on all hands calls. It's getting, red accounts calls in there. It's putting a Slack channel. Kaylee asked like, how do we set these feedback channels up? Most companies have Slack or something like it, or even email. Just send out a weekly email or monthly email. Like, here's some customer win stories. Put pictures up of your customers. People, your marketers, like pictures and icons get people to look at something. And so, do that, like, and you'll start to infuse that, and people will see how important this is.
Excellent. Well, I see a great question here from Kira. Do you incentivize or have company business MBOs that are customer focused? So maybe even a little more broadly, like how do you put to hold people accountable or to incent or reward people for being customer focused or customer centric? Is that something that you've done with your comp structure?
like all of our it's across our team. So our product team, like, it's not about releasing code. I don't really care how much we release. It's about the adoption and utilization of the product. So that's what we look at first and foremost. And then we start to look at revenue from that. So that's really important. I think on in terms of, like everything we do, it's just like, is our customers utilizing this, like across all of the lines of business? Like, that's our number one question, because without that, what are you building for?
And I'm just curious, when you came in and took over, I mean, was the company, did you feel like it already had that culture, or did you play a big role in kind of infusing or transforming the culture to be more in line with your career development and experience and the values basically that you brought from your early days?
I think there was, I always use this, like, there has to be the foundation, building blocks, clay, whatever you want to call it, has to be there. And, I could see before I came that people really did care about the customer, and the customers loved our products. I think it wasn't as programmatized, and it wasn't as elevated as much as we could. So we were able to kind of take some of those building blocks and say, great, we can elevate it. But if you're going into a company where the customers hate your products, like, that's tough. Like, I would say, if you're looking at a job, like, you need to look and see, like, where is that? And if customers hate the product, then I would say you really need to spend a lot of time rebuilding your product, because you're not, there's a disconnect there, and then you can start to build from that.
Right. All right.
Christine, would you take a stab at of all the, let's say all the, whatever industry, the tech industry, the SaaS industry, whatever, how many companies are capable of these kinds of very dynamic customer relationships? Is it kind of like an early adopter? Are we somewhere we haven't crossed the chasm? Maybe it's only 15%, or are we getting closer? And with what's going on now, care to take a guess at that?
Yeah. Well, I think we've made incredible strides, and just the fact that customer marketing, customer success roles are, I know there's comments of people are worried that they're the ones that are getting laid off, but they're also in incredible demand. And even in the last couple of years, we've seen that uptick. And so whether people actually understand what they do or not or yet is unclear, but at least they understand that they're supposed to have it. And so that's a first step.
Yeah. Right. Well, your observation about customer success, that's been around longer, and it's got more. I think there's something like 150 or 200,000 CSMs now on LinkedIn, something like that. Which I got this from Nick. There was like 500 back in the mid 2000 teens, and now there's like hundreds of thousands, and still there's confusion. People still refer to them as support.
Yeah.
So this is, I don't think this is unusual. When you're doing something new, it might take decades.
Yeah. Definitely.
So,
We're getting there. There's progress.
yeah. And I think you're the approach, I'm blown away by some of these suggestions you've given here about taking a little bit of the time, baby steps, so to speak, and so forth, and take time and telling stories, even the most, the most quant people will relate to stories if they in fact touch them or their customers. So I think, yeah, I can't wait to see our transcript here. And we've got a lot of notes here in the chat room saying can't wait to see it. This has been really, really, really rich. Is there anybody who didn't get something answered? We're actually starting to run late here. I think we got to pretty much everybody. If not, then let me know and we'll try to get an answer for you. But I think we're just about done.
Yes.
Jeff, any
I think we're at the
closing
top of the
thoughts?
hour. So I want to wrap up here. Christina, this was awesome. Thank you so much. There were a lot of people, or a few people that had to leave that were disappointed, but they'll watch the replay. But thank you so much for those insights. It's exactly what our audience of customer marketing and advocacy professionals need as they try to, gear their careers towards to help them achieve the growth potential that they're looking for.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Thank you,
All right.
Christina. The honor was all ours. You were awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Have a great day. And thank you all for joining us. We'll talk soon.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.